and welcome to my weekly personal therapy session and excuse to get out of the second leg of bedtime, also known as Decanted Live. I'm so glad you're here. And how lucky are we that we have with us tonight Pulitzer Prize-winning columnist, author, journalist, and of course, the lovely wife of Mr. Connie Schultz. Connie Schultz!
Hi there. It's great to see you, Katie.
Welcome. It's great to see you. I got to ask how you're doing and what Sharon thought of the Mr. Connie Schultz reference. I mean, he must get that all the time, right?
That's exactly what he said to me. He said, tell them to be more unique. He's a great sport about it always. He really is. You might hear the dogs bark soon like crazy because he's going to be coming home shortly. They're driving back from Washington.
Oh, wow. That's a good safe option.
You'll hear that. I have the door closed, but that can contain the mania only so much. And I told him he has to shower downstairs before he can even come up the stairs. So we may have some time here.
I love it. You guys have a whole routine. You know how to do this.
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so great. Connie, one thing I just wanted to start by asking you about is this daily ritual you have created on Twitter. And, it's just this reminder to breathe every day. We've talked a lot about it among the women of Red, Wine, and Blue. I think we're suburban women from across the state of Ohio, and we really want to change the future of our state and our country. But doing that while homeschooling children and managing jobs is a lot. And I just think I've heard over and over and again from women who find solace in those reminders from you. And what's the backstory there?
I think, I've been trying to figure out when I first started doing it because suddenly I'm being asked more about it. More importantly, especially women have been reaching out about it, which I just love. I am a chronic asthmatic. So I have had to be very aware over the years of the importance of breathing. And when I'm on deadline or when I'm watching the news, I often catch myself not breathing lately. And I thought, I need to remember to breathe. And so it just kind of evolved on that. I mentioned it a couple of times. I try to always have a photo of some sort. Tonight, I just posted a photo of my daughter when she was 7 sitting in the sink brushing her teeth. I try to always come up with things. In this one, I just said, it doesn't have to be boring to brush your teeth. And then I mentioned that this was a photo of my daughter shortly after I became a single mother. And we loved our little apartment on Winslow Road. And then I just say, this is your evening reminder to breathe. I think this time I said, but make sure you swish and spit first. And I share it on all platforms. I put it on Twitter usually first, and then I put it on Instagram and on Facebook.
Yeah.
And the thing is, there's a science, Katie, as you know, there's a science behind it. A deep breath really does help. It helps it can lower your blood pressure. It can slow your heart rate. If you find that you're really, your heart's racing, it's pounding. And it can just give you a chance for just a moment to be in that moment and to catch yourself and realize how stressed you actually are feeling right now and how you have to take care of yourself.
Yeah. I have found myself feeling in the midst of quarantine, sometimes it's just a tightness, like here, and it'll creep up on me and it's frequent. And, it can be even in the middle of, I'm in the kitchen and my kids are being cute, and I think I'm trying to appreciate the moment and not get too dim, but I'll feel it, it's almost just creeping up inside of me. And almost honestly, just hearing you describe that image of your daughter, there's just something that helps me relax and recenter. And I think we have to find ways of reminding each other to do that and showing up for each other in ways that we can allow ourselves to do that.
Yeah, I really understand that. I'm really glad I took a lot of pictures when my own kids were little, and that I get a steady supply of grandchildren pictures because I've been using them a lot. And I use the dogs a lot. And the reason I use those two groups is for the very reason you just said, even just the image of a child at play or dogs being what dogs do, right, can make us calm down. We don't have to know who the people are in the picture. It can even bring back memories of our own, what it means to be childlike. So I'm really glad it has that impact on you because that's what I'm going for day in and day out.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thanks for showing up for us in that way. So another source of both wisdom and catharsis, I would say, for women across Ohio has become Dr. Amy Acton, finding a hero in her. And I have been reminded, I looked up a tweet you tweeted out in November, just of last year. And this is what it said. Women have always known that kindness is part of our strength, and that this confounds those who think we have to choose. It's our not so secret power, and it worries only those who think they're going to stand in our way.
Right.
And I just think, do you think that has something to do with why Dr. Amy Acton's leadership has been so powerful? The way that she's showing up, in particular, as a woman in a leadership position.
One of the things I started paying more attention to her when I was hearing her voice, because I was either driving early on or I have it on the radio and I'm hearing it. And she has such a calming approach to it. She never uses inflammatory language. She never gets partisan about the issue because, of course, the coronavirus is nonpartisan, right? And I do think, I hesitate to say women universally have certain traits because we're not a monolith, but she does embody some of the best qualities that I see in the women I admire. And she understands that your strength comes in the power of your demeanor and your message and your intention. And that's why I do believe also in the power of kindness, because no one should ever mistake that for anything other than knowing that what we're really trying to do is help. And it helps nobody if we start screaming.
Yeah. Amen to that. Okay. I have a lot of questions because we've gotten a lot of questions submitted in anticipation of you joining us. But I also want to invite people watching to ask questions, and Beverly will share those with us. She'll pop some of them up on the screen. So I just want to invite anyone to jump up or share comments, exactly like Laura, how she's getting through this with Dr. Acton telling her she's doing a good job and Connie telling her to breathe. I love that. And I think she speaks for so many of us. Laura is one of many members of Red, White, and Blue's private group where we have a lot of these conversations. And I wanted to put a post up that one woman shared just this week in our group, because I really think it speaks so much to what moms in particular are going through right now. So this is Andrea. She was actually a lifelong Republican. She has this really interesting background story until Trump. And now she just hadn't been paying that much attention. Now she really is. She's really engaged. She's a mom. She also works full time in the schools. And this is what her post said. This was just from a couple days ago. This selfie of her holding her baby and trying to work at the same time. This is what trying to be a full-time employee and 24/7 parent looks like. It's effing hard. I'm planning to write my reps today because all of us working parents need solutions that work for us, and we need them now because I don't know how much longer I can keep doing this. Vulnerabilities like in our systems and society were like already there. This crisis didn't create those, but boy, have they exposed them. And yeah.
I want to say a couple things to that. First of all, I want to acknowledge how important the work is that you're doing right now, Katie. I'm here because of you, first and foremost, as you know. And then I'm here for your audience of women, these incredible people who are stronger, clearly stronger than they know right now because of all the stuff that you have going on tonight. You're all here right now, which is why I'm here, because my life is a lot easier than yours right now. But we have, all of our adult children have young children. And so we're seeing it in real time. And the mothers in this group, I don't know how to say this any other way. You are, whatever it is you're doing, it's enough right now. And the problem is women almost never think we're doing enough. So this is the worst climate imaginable for us because so much is out of our control. And yet we're trying to be there for everybody in our lives. But the other thing I want to be really clear about is you are role models, regardless of whether you think you are, and you're leaders without perhaps acknowledging that about yourselves. Because again, you could be anywhere tonight. You have so many demands, and yet you're here because you care so much about one another, you care about your community, and you care about the country. This is why I do what I do. I love having male readers. I know many, many good men. You and I are both married to wonderful men, but I'm here for the women. And I remember what it was like as a young mother. And we didn't know how to build tribe in the same way that you do. Part of it is we didn't have the technology, right? We didn't, but also I'm just seeing the evolution of women, and, you know, you're carrying as you climb. It's basically how I look at this, which is so important for us to do. And if there are women closer to my age, you surely know what I mean, that we didn't have as many women doing that, but it wasn't because they didn't want to. I've always thought this. Most women are too humble to know how much value they bring to any conversation, to any organization, to relationships. And I'm optimistic about your generation and on of the younger generations that perhaps it is dawning on you the power that you have. And one of the things you do know clearly, and I knew it from my union background growing up, our strength is in our numbers. And that's why it's so important that you're supporting one another right now.
Thank you for saying that, Connie. And I think that we feel that every day, and it's why we do keep showing up for each other. There are so many women in this community who never had been involved in politics before, and some of them are even running for office now. And you know, the one thing, they all have different stories, different backgrounds, different visions and hopes. But the one thing they all always say that's consistent about them is that I am here because of the women who were willing to stand up behind me and support me and do this. It's just, I haven't found an example of any woman who's, you know, stepped right in without that. So they say, you know, behind every strong woman, there's a gang of strong women. And I know that resonates, you know, so much with the women here. And I think that, honestly, in the midst of this pandemic that none of us ever could have anticipated, I'm actually seeing that in deeper ways than ever before. Because in isolation, we need that connection, you know, in even greater ways. This is intense, you know. I think that I'm curious for your perspective on this. I was so fascinated by the articles and interviews that have come out with some of the grief experts, including Dr. Kessler. It was a grief expert. I was so struck by what he has said. He says, we are dealing with the collective loss of the world we knew. So that sense of heaviness we're all feeling is grief. And Connie, I know that's something you have experience with. Have you felt that way? Have you observed that in yourself or in your community?
Well, certainly. Just last week, I lost one of my closest friends. I've known her almost 40 years. And she didn't, thank you. Her name was Flika, and she didn't have the virus, but she had a heart attack. She was resuscitated and then put on life support. And she was in Jacksonville, Florida. And because of the virus, I couldn't get to her. And it was the latest of bad news that keeps coming. You know, the longer you live, the more likely you are to know others who are very ill right now or dying from this virus. And so that has certainly been our story as well. But I also know this about grief, because this is not the first time I have felt it. I wrote my column this week that I thought I was powering through, and then my son called on Mother's Day. And it was right the day before Sherry was going to have to go back to Washington. And this is the longest we've been together uninterrupted. We've been together for 45 straight days. And then he had to go back. And I was very worried about what that meant to go back. First of all, for him, I was really feeling the loss of my friend who had died only 2 days earlier. And I started, you know, I raised my kids. I'll never forget this. When my son was in his teens, and he's 12 years older than Caitlin. So he was in his late teens, early 20s. And for some reason, they were at my kitchen table. This is when I was a single mother, and something had happened. And I was rather emotional about it. I said, I just want you to understand, I don't need you guys ever to take care of me. I can take care of myself. And my son said, I think we got that message. I think we've pretty much absorbed that message. So, you know, we tend to want to think of ourselves certain ways. And that's certainly how I want to see myself. Well, leave it to your own kids, right? To say, because my son was so blunt with me. It's not, he said, you're the one who's always said, It's not a weakness to cry. The weakness is when you pretend you never need to.
Yes.
Because that's the cowardice, right? It was a very moving moment. I collected myself. He was going to come fetch me from Chicago right away. And I said, that is not happening. As I said in my column, apparently 62 is the new 90 during the coronavirus and the view of
my mother has said the same thing. She's so pissed.
But, you know, we are a more vulnerable population. To get back to the notion of grief, what I also know about grief is it's, and I have a scene in my novel coming out, The Daughters of Erie-Town. It's coming out next month.
We're all very excited.
Thank you. I wasn't saying for that reason. I just thought this is a scene that's in it that really it comes from my experience. So. Thank you. There's a moment where a character describes to another person that grief is that monster knocking on the door. And until you let it in and sit with it until you get bored with each other, it's never going to leave. And it can be there knocking on the door for years and years. And I don't want that for anyone. I think it's important that we let the grief, when we hear the knock on the door, we let it in, because it's going to leave a lot sooner if we do. And we share it with the people who care about us, and we make sure we reach out. You know, we all have different personality types. We may have friends who we know something's wrong when all of a sudden they're not communicating much, right? That's when you actually pick up the phone. If they're not going to respond to your text, you start leaving messages. But we will get through this. This is not our forevermore. We will be in a different place when it's over, but that's not all bad news. I really have a lot of faith. I have a lot of faith in most human beings, including most Americans, to understand that there will be good that comes from this. We may not see it just yet. I think we'll be a nation of huggers down the road. I think we will know to be in touch more and to appreciate these moments more. As I wrote in my column, I stare at my husband's face more when he doesn't know I'm watching. And I also realized I should have been doing that all along.
I loved that line so much.
No,
it made me want to appreciate, you know, what I have right in front of me too, with young children and a very fine husband too. So
it doesn't mean you're not supposed to be annoyed with them ever. And
okay, good, because that would be impossible.
It is impossible. We always have to be emphasizing that as well. We're going to lose it sometimes. We're going to have too much going on. You know, my dining room table is all clean, but I just heard my husband come home and I know what that means for my table again. And it's okay that for a moment, I just needed it to look the way I wanted it to. Now I got to let it go again.
Exactly. So Connie, you know, what is your vision? Something I'm so taken by, back to Dr. Amy Acton, that she has said is that she does see a brighter future for us beyond this. And I think people have latched on to that. You know, it's like her most popular and shared quote. And I know I go back to it again and again. And what brighter future do you see in terms of how we might come out of this? Because this ain't no hiccup. This is going to be something that we talk about. Where were you when this happened, and what changed in your life?
Let's talk about masks for a moment, because I think masks are more than just about the wearing of the mask. If as we start going out in public more, we continue to wear masks because they tell us that this is the way to prevent the spread, this is a thing we will know about ourselves for the rest of our lives. That when it was really hard and really inconvenient, we did the right things we had to do because we cared about one another.
Yeah.
And I think, being a lot older than you, I can tell you the comfort that can bring to you down the road. When you know in the toughest moment, there's also the shared experience of having gone through, well, if somebody had laid this out for us that this could happen, we would all think, there's no way, I couldn't do this. I couldn't do this. And every week we're doing more of what we thought we could never do. That is who we are going to be as well. It reminds me a little bit of, what's his first name? Larson has a new book out about Churchill. And so I'm reading about the Blitz again. And people who survived the Blitz during World War II, you know, and they never knew which home was going to be bombed next, they learned something about themselves. And small, petty things didn't mean the same thing later because they had survived what killed so many. And I do think that is part of the story of the coronavirus. And we can't know that yet, but I have such faith that that will be part of our story down the road.
Yeah. The whole notion of the common good and how that is playing out with with these masks, and it truly, this is not something I'm doing for myself I haven't been so worried about my young children.
Right.
It's grandparents and it's vulnerable people in the community, and doing this for each other. And I think sometimes we talk about these concepts of showing up for each other and the common good, but in such a concrete way, to like don your mask, that it feels like I feel like I can feel and touch the common good in a way I haven't before. And that inspires me in terms of the world I'd like to raise my kids in.
I've also noticed as we walk through our neighborhood, we live in the city of Cleveland, and it's so common to ask people we don't even know very well. They'll ask us, how are you holding up? It's the universal question, right? Because it's a universal concern. And we're all understanding the importance of have somebody asking and just checking in. This too is something new for a lot of communities. We won't be the strangers we once were when this is over.
Yeah. Wow. That's really powerful. Okay. I want to invite people. We're getting a lot of comments, but guys, don't be afraid to bring your questions here too. Okay.
Yes.
I know my questions are pretty good, but seriously, don't be shy. We're interested in, everybody's experiences out there too. And I can tell you, there's no one more interested in your life experience than Connie Schultz. Okay. Megan, let's see. Megan Coy. My parents hugged me for the first time in 2 months on Sunday, and I cried. Tears all over the mask I was wearing. I don't know if I can get through this. I'm a nurse and have comforted my patients the past few months, but to feel that comfort myself made me break down.
Wow, that's pretty understandable considering how much comforting she's been providing to strangers and being on the front lines the way you've been, Megan. Of course you would have melted. Of course you would have cried when you finally felt the kindness returned to you by people you love. That sounds like a universal experience to me, especially now.
Yeah, we did a strict quarantine for 2 weeks so that we could see Jeremy's parents.
That's wonderful. Come in and say hi. Chair's just going to pop down. Say hi.
I guess you can come on in here.
Have to bring it down so you can see.
Hey, Sharon.
I can't touch anything.
Can't touch anything. Oh, your hair's all good. Go.
How are you? Okay, I'm done. Sorry.
It's good to see you. Welcome home.
Glad to be home. Love to be home.
Okay, take the dog.
Come on, you guys.
So I would love to have done what your parents got to do, which is to see you and the kids. We have 7 grandchildren, and I haven't seen them in months now, and I miss them terribly. We do a lot of FaceTime, a lot of pictures, a lot of, but I'm mindful of how they're growing, because they're little, most of them, and our 12-year-old grandson has just returned from 5 years in St. Croix, so he lived through Hurricane Maria, where they didn't have power for weeks. We couldn't be in touch with them for a while. And now he's got this. And I just think about my grandchildren a lot and what they're going through. But they have parents they're like you and like so many of the people on the talk tonight. You just know your children so well. Your children are going to be okay. I know it doesn't feel like that right now. They're acting out. They're sensing your anxieties often. My daughter was crushed the other day when Milo told her he needed a minute because he was still working. And I said, look, I got the picture I can show you when you were pretending to be on the phone at age 2 years old, taking notes and interviewing somebody. And I thought I was going to die. And then she ended up being this advocate for children and wearing her son as she was testifying before the state assembly in Rhode Island. It's going to be all right. Your children, you love your children. You know them better than anyone else. They're going to be okay.
Yeah. And the distance with the grandparents is so hard. I know you're feeling that. That was the first time I broke down and cried in quarantine. I was talking to my mom and I was just literally doing the math of the percentage of my son's life she was missing. He's 21 months. So, you miss a couple months, that's 10% of his life, a couple more, it's.
You know what I tell myself? I try to tell myself 2 years from now, I won't remember that anymore. I'll be so involved with them again.
Yep.
And I also think it's important that we not try to imagine too far down the road. We don't know how soon we're going to have a vaccine. We don't know how soon the curve will flatten. Things are unpredictable. It is not a helpful, I have found personally anyway, to try to imagine too many months down the road and what I still might be missing.
No, not helpful.
Right? It's human to do that. It's normal
Right.
to do that, but I don't think it helps us much.
Yeah. Yeah. That's how I think about my son, whenever he starts kindergarten, it's going to be awesome.
Yes,
No
it
matter
is.
what month it is, no matter what year it is.
And he
gonna
won't be
a
the
really-
only one. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the thing I remind our kids is everybody's kids are going to be on different schedules than what they would have been before this happened, right? So let's keep that in mind. We're probably going to end up seeing a generation of real resilience in a lot of these children.
Yes, we are. Amen to that. Resilience is the key to life, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
Okay, Connie, we have a game that we play here on Decanted Live. It's called Eye Roll of the Week. It's inspired by Tina Fey. And that's the Tina Fey eye roll. She brings it every time. Now, what we're going to do is we're both going to nominate. There's going to be 2 nominees. I'm going to nominate someone. You're going to nominate someone for Eye Roll of the Week. I will go first.
Okay.
Because we actually have a defending champion. And you will then challenge this defending champion with your nominee. And then everybody who's watching, you guys get to vote. So in comments, you will get to vote for my nominee or Connie's nominee. And then we will crown, whoever is the eye roll of the week. It's not really a great honor to have, but we have a good time playing it. So it's a good thing to do. It's a good thing to do in quarantine. So, all right.
I'm all in. You start.
Okay. So the defending champion is Ohio State Representative Nino Vitale, who, yep, there he is. That's the guy. He's the defending champion with that crown for eye roll of the week. Now, this is the guy who says that the latest is that face masks force the virus into the brain. He has said that he refuses to wear a mask because we're made in God's image, and that image is seen most in our face. And recently, I believe it was just this last week as well, he falsely claimed that Governor DeWine has made an edict that we can't go to church and worship Almighty God, which is not true, because DeWine actually did not ban church. That has been the responsible decision of church leaders to say, hey, we probably shouldn't do large gatherings right now, so we'll worship online and stay connected in other ways. And also, I mean, dude, like, don't you know that God is everywhere? Like, you don't have to go to church to be with your God, I mean, like, have some faith, man. So he is once again, he got a lot of national attention for that whole, I'm not wearing a mask would dishonor God, which is not really the God I grew up to know. I thought there was something in the Bible about loving our neighbor and being willing to do hard things for each other.
Right. Yeah. I mean, my mom was a born again Christian, very liberal. And she always said being a Christian means fixing yourself and helping others, not the other way around. And right now in this pandemic, fixing yourself means wearing your mask, right? I think of when he said, can't go worship God, I think of that Dixie Chicks song, God hears amen wherever you are. But I also think of my mother too. My mom said, if you want to be stupid, God's going to let you. And if you want to die stupid, God's going to let you. So his version of faith bears no resemblance to the home I was raised in.
Yes, a very faithful home. Come on, dude. Like, check the Bible.
I also like that he thinks his is the face of God. That's enough to scare anybody out of Christianity. So we'll just leave it there.
Oh my gosh, that's such an additional good point. Like, you are not bringing people to the faith right now, man. People are not going to want to participate in this.
No, I'm watching. I'm thinking women are watching. Wait, God looks like you? Okay, no. All right, no.
Exactly.
That's not the man I'm praying to.
Exactly. Okay, so that was a pretty good nominee, our defending champion, Nino Vitale. You're up. Who's your nominee, Connie Schultz?
Well, I'm afraid it's going to have to be Donald Trump, and the way he conducted himself with the female reporters this past week, and then stomped off because they pushed back on him. And what I loved about watching that, I mean, I never love it. I'm a journalist. I'm so proud of those women for holding their own. But as I tweeted out, I also just think millions of women were watching that and thought, okay, I divorced that. That is exactly what I'm never putting up with in my life again. And he was just petulant as a child and just stomping off. He hates us. He's called us the enemy of the people so often. He's endangered the lives of journalists with his rhetoric. But those women, I hope we're all acknowledging how brave they are and how they're modeling how you deal with that kind of bully. And it doesn't matter if he's the president of the United States, if he's going to talk to you like that. And they weren't mocking him. They were just holding their own. They were standing their ground. So my vote is for him because, well, he's an easy target. I understand that. But it was really quite a sight to watch that happen.
Yeah, no kidding. That reporter just completely stood up for herself, which we have consistently seen, I think, from female journalists. It's not like this was the first time he's been completely insulting to a female journalist.
It's
usually, yeah. Am I right too that it's usually a woman of color? Like,
yes,
that's the thing.
Typically. Yep. It's been so predictable of him. I mean, I have no problem saying that Donald Trump is a racist. I believe he is, and he's also a misogynist. So wow, and then you get this wonderful reporter standing up, and that's what's going to happen. It's never justifiable, and it's never fair. And quite frankly, I hope mothers were showing their daughters and their sons all over the country that this is how you conduct yourself when somebody tries to bully you. You bully me only with my permission, and those women made very clear permission denied.
Yeah. Yes. You know, I see such a parallel too between actually Vitale, you know, here in the state house in Ohio, and Trump, because you have like look at Trump and this female reporter, and then you have Vitale and Amy Acton, you know, and they're both women who have stepped up, who are leading, who are doing their jobs, you know, and there just seems to be like a severe discomfort.
I think part of the reason they're uncomfortable is there are no buttons they can push. These women are going to be professionals. They're going to be strong no matter what they attempt in their derisions. And men like that don't know what to do with women like us.
Oh, put that on a bumper sticker. I love that so much. Okay, everybody, you got to vote. Is it Vitale or is it Trump? Men who have no idea what to do with women like us.
That's right.
But who is going to get the honor this week? Please vote in comments. Beverly will do a very scientific tabulation. And I will have to check my notifications here to know when we do in fact have a winner. But I gotta ask you for some parting advice here too. Connie, I can't remember if you told me this like one-on-one or if I heard you say it on a panel, but I have always looked to you for wisdom and advice for like how, when you put yourself out there, which I have done more than ever actually with Red, White, and Blue. I've kind of been more of a behind the scenes gal, but I've been so inspired by these women across the state, and it's inspired me to step up too. Like as we all step up together, we're just standing on each other's shoulders. And so, you know, it's an exciting thing, but it's a little nerve wracking. But I've looked to you for advice in terms of stepping up, you know, in particular as a woman. And one of the things that you said, I remember, like with your columns, when you used to regularly write at the Plain Dealer, where there was always comments on them, you're like, don't read them. You know, that is not like a place where there's going to be meaningful feedback and substantive conversation. Like people just exist to try to tear you down. Don't waste your time. Don't spend your energy. That is not, you know, those are the dudes in those comment sections who are scared of women like us. I would assume that fits in the same category. And so I just think that there are so many women here who are working on their leadership, whether that is, you know, just stepping up and becoming involved in some small way, having a hard conversation with a family member or a friend, or just saying something, expressing an opinion, all the way to putting her hat in the ring and putting their name on the ballot. In Ohio, we have more women than ever in Ohio's history on the ballot in 2020. Mm-hmm. And, you know, running for Congress, running for State House. And, you know, just what advice for putting yourself out there in small ways, because those small ways can feel really big too. You know,
I agree with that. There is no small way when it's your first steps, right? It feels big. And if you stand for anything, you're going to be attacked. Sharon has often teased me that there's a certain percentage of angry white men who hate me and they love to read me. And I learned early in my career as a columnist, this is my 18th year now writing a newspaper column, that I don't have time for them. They are gnats on my shoulder and I'm going to flick them off because I am interested in substantive debate. I am certainly open to meaningful critique and criticism. I want to hear that. But I am not going to give up any of that space, that limited space in my head every day, and the limited amount of energy I have every day. I'm not going to waste it on them because I have work to do. I have people I'm trying to help. I have women I'm trying to advocate for, and I'm advocating all the time for people of color in the LGBTQ community. I can't be afraid of doing that because we must be allies. And I would say to all of you, no matter where you are in your level of involvement, if they're starting to attack you, you are hitting the right points. You are making a difference. It's one of the indications. Unfortunately, it can come from friends and family sometimes who don't understand you, which is why it's so important to have your own tribe. And that is men and women who want you to succeed, who are invested emotionally in your success. Some of my friends I've had for almost 40 years now, and I have new friends. I mean, Katie, you're one of them. I don't believe it's ever too late to make new friends. If I had thought that, I wouldn't have ended up getting to know you, and what a privilege that has been. So you will always be criticized. That isn't the reason to stop. And in my case, often it lets me know that I'm on the right track.
Yeah. Badge of honor. All right. I feel like we can forge another day, ladies. Maybe 6 months of them, even through November and beyond. There's work
They
to
will
do.
have much work. There'll be so much work to do. There's a lot of repairing of the world that will have to take place, and we are going to be a part of that.
Yep. As a tribe, there for each other. Okay. So it's time to announce the winner, and I lost. You win.
Well, it's so easy. It has nothing
I
to do with
mean,
me.
it's so easy.
It's so easy. Look at him. Oh God. Yeah. Right. So I mean, but we'll still keep God.
I never
Junior
had a
in
shot.
our hearts.
Yeah. I mean, maybe next week. Or lay off, and just put on a mask. All right. Connie, thank you for doing this. It is always such a pleasure to spend time with you. I want to let you go to spend time with your husband because you had those 45 days and he had to go away. Now he's back, and that's awesome.
He's back. We're going to go for a long walk, and then we're going to watch the next episode of Mrs. America on Hulu.
I'm watching it too.
Isn't it great?
So good. Oh my
But then
gosh.
we do end with an episode of Schitt's Creek. I don't want to make us sound too lofty here. We just got into that. Our daughter said, "You've got to start watching this," and it is a ridiculous show, and it makes us laugh every time. And
totally. No, that's a great balance, actually. Yeah,
I thought so. Yeah.
Yeah, great acting in both shows, by the way, too. A lot of
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Enjoy. Give Sharon our love.
I will. To all of you. Bye, Katie.
Bye.